The U.S. tariff imposition has significant implications for Nigeria's economy, particularly in terms of trade. Nigeria was the largest U.S. export destination in sub-Saharan Africa in 2022. But the tariffs could reduce Nigeria's exports to the U.S., impacting the country's trade surplus. The affected sectors may include agriculture and manufacturing, with potential consequences for farmers' livelihoods and the competitiveness of Nigerian products in the U.S. market. To mitigate this effect, Nigeria is expected to take proactive steps towards minimizing the impact of U.S. tariffs and promoting sustainable economic growth. On our program Nigeria Today, we shall be looking at the U.S. tariffs and the Nigerian economy. Thanks for joining us. I am Eucharia Clinton. With me in the studio for this conversation is Niyi Akinshiju. He's an financial and economic analyst, financial and investment analyst. You're welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thanks so much. A privilege to be here.
No, Lee, of course, it's no longer news, the imposition of the tariff on Nigeria, exports. Now, quite a lot of things have been going around. Experts have been saying one thing, while some other people have. People are like on the two divides. While some say, okay, it might not be too significant. Others say this is a suicide mission for Nigerian economy. However, we want to get your view. What do you think about this imposition of tariff?
Yeah, thank you. There's no way we can analyze the impact of the tariff on Nigeria as a standalone. We must look at it from the context of the global impacts. If we look at it as a standalone, there is that possibility of being complacent and, of course, being comfortable even with the possible base scenarios. For instance, the products that constitute the largest percentage of exports to the U.S. is in the oil sector, oil and gas sector. And that constitutes more than 92% of the total volume of exports to the United States. So you have, in fact, it used to be 8%, and I think by 2024 it had reduced. That's the non-oil sector, the non-oil aspect of exports had actually reduced to about 6%, So when you look principally at the tariff applied to goods and services that are in the non-oil sector, it will appear as if Nigeria would not be impacted. So you have, because the United States government had exempted all items and products related to energy, and that's including gas and crude oil, which forms the bulk of our exports. But again, when you now flip it and also observe the chaos that now characterizes international global trade and transactions, one way or the other, indirectly, they are impacting Nigeria. Because of the uncertainty, and that uncertainty, we need to define it. With the tariff application, the uncertainty stems from the rationale, for the tariff. Nobody understands why Trump, why President Trump is applying tariff, because the U.S. is not exactly threatened economically, has so much assets, despite the fact that, of course, it survives on debt, But the truth of the matter is the U.S. is a bastion of globalization. It's a bastion of direct, uninhibited, no barrier trading before now. and had also always promised its people that they would live on reduced costs of living. So you now have suddenly this president coming with this tariff. So, and it has, because most the economy of the US is actually run on the concept of globalization. So where you have producers or factories that are directly linked to the United States operating outside the United States because of cheaper costs of products or production. Yeah, so that when then they bring the products inside inside the United States of America, the items, the products are cheaper because of the cheaper cost of labor, cheaper cost of other factors of production that had been exploited in other climes. So this is like changing that order, you know, and because you are changing that order, there's a prospect of increase in inflation figures. There's a prospect of reduced demand, and where there's reduced demand, it impacts the level of production, and when it impacts the level of production, people are also now fearing a possible recession. So when you now have a possible recession, most companies, most investors are now fleeing the equity markets. In the US itself, more than 63% of its people are involved in the equity market. And of course, the bastion of sustainability in the US is the 401, the retirement fund. The individual retirement fund are usually, you know, invested in the equity market. But because of this uncertainty, knowing that by the time this tariff applies, it will impact the bottom lines of most companies. Most equity investors are taking flight.
So in other words, it definitely will affect
so now,
even the US too.
It's affecting the US, all the exchanges, the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, you know, S&P 500 are falling by a huge percentage.
Okay, now, let's talk about, you know, us, the Nigeria.
Yeah.
Now, you know, some Nigerians have said, oh, we can do without the US. Now, one would wonder, for a country that's largely dependent on importation, importing, you know, products, you know, from other countries, how possible can it be that we can do without?
No, really, we don't import much from the US. And that is why the US are saying, I mean, the United States authority are saying that it is not as if ours is as a result of that huge balance of trade or balance of payment difference. Where we got that difference, it's from the crude oil and gas segments. But the truth of the matter is, if I am trying to see a more linear explanation to it, the impact of globalization is still the anchor of our problem. I was trying to land, you know, on the equity market disruption in the United States. It's not in the United States; it has become contagious. It had gone through Europe, had come to Nigeria. The equity markets had been in a violent storm, you know, in the last three days. And more scary is our, what do you call it, our Naira-dollar exchange rates. So we have now seen the Naira to dollar, you know, crashing in the official market to more than 1,600. When at the time, about 2-3 weeks ago, we were, you know, luxuriating in the possibility of a stable Naira-dollar exchange rate, you know. And of course, when you have that kind of scenario, you also have the possibility of the pass-through, and it will also reflect in inflation. Then, because people are also investors are taking flight, and there's so much disruption, crude oil price is falling. as a result, direct result of these tariffs. It has, I think at the last count, it has fallen to under $63 and $65 per barrel. That has implication too for our benchmark, our budget benchmark.
Yes, I was about coming to that. Will it not affect the budget?
It is.
Because we have quite a lot of, estimates, a lot of assumptions that are there in the budget. So talk to us about that.
So to that extent, it's going to affect us.
Okay.
We are not talking of our imports. We don't import from the United States. Well, again, it's a circular thing. And like all economies, we talk about multiplier effect and the circular effect. There's always that possibility of contagion effect. When something happens to a jurisdiction, it's likely to come flow through all possible economies. So here you have, nobody was thinking about crude oil price crashing when tariff were being announced. I mean, this increase in tariff, where application of tariff was being announced by President Trump. But here we are, within the span of 1 week, crude oil price has crashed from 73 per barrel, to 63. At the point in time, it went to as low as $61. Meanwhile, our benchmark rate for crude oil was $75. Already, we are looking at a deficit of more than $12, per barrel, and that has implication on the quantity that we are going to produce. So, to a large extent, I'm saying indirectly, this impacts us. Directly, we may look at the figures and say, well, all right, we are immune, we are protected, but the whole global economy is in disruption. And there's no way the Nigerian economy can also escape it. So we now need to start building structures that will more or less insulate us. We can't be insulated, But again, it takes a lot of will, it takes a lot of commitment and creativity to do that.
Thank you very much, Niyi. We'll take a short break now. The conversation will continue after the break. Don't go away.
The implementation of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different? We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that our questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today. Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, this is Nigeria Today, and we are looking at the imposition of the tariff on Nigerian, export products by the U.S. And of course, I have here with me an investment and financial analyst, Niyi Akinshiju, in the studio. Now, Niyi, you've talked about what is likely to be the effect, multiplier effect, and all of that. So, what should we be doing now as a country?
Well, sincerely, I think the federal government is conscious of all possible downturn, scenarios of downturn. So from the latest I'm reading, it's that the economic management team vigorously working towards building different scenarios, which is very important, because now we're looking at the crude oil sector, which is a major what do I call it, source of our foreign exchange, being affected, or it's in the process of being affected already. We also looking at constriction of exports, non-oil exports. Non-oil exports has started getting a boost. We are seeing increased records on non-oil exports,
This
agriculture.
certainly affect our SMEs.
Yes, and most of our non-oil exports are, SMEs are more involved in our non-oil exports, processed agricultural products, form of process of manufactured products and all that. So, and unfortunately, well, I don't know if it's unfortunate because we didn't exploit the AGOA, African Growth Opportunity Act of 2000, that actually the United States flung open borders for targeted African countries, Nigeria inclusive, to bring in their products, their exports at zero tariff, But we did not, as a country, we did not exploit it. We were just busy taking our crude oil and other oil and gas related products. So because of that, we had not actually grown, in that segment. So the only way that I see us, feeling or offsetting that possible negatives that had come out from that small percentage of our non-oil sector exports is to start concentrating on our immediate region, the ECOWAS. The ECOWAS, yes, okay. ECOWAS, and then the African Free Trade Area. We have seen first signs in 2024 that our products, more Nigerian exports are being taken in the African area, especially in the West African area, up to Cote d'Ivoire, So when you have that recorded, it does mean that there are opportunities that can be exploited in this trade area, even within the ECOWAS free market. So whatever may be our limitations, whatever may be the constriction that had been barrier that had been thrown at us by the United States, let us come back home to Africa. One will benefit from contiguity, geographical contiguity. We benefit from cultural similarities, and of course we benefit from mutual respect, So to a large extent, the focus will be Africa first, and we are also placed as a country, we are also placed in a more stronger position vis-a-vis our neighbors in Africa. So we may, if we deliberately lead this charge on the African market, we may be better placed, exploiting the African space than, of course, taking our goods several thousands of miles, across to the United States. The figures are there already. I think this 2024 alone, we increased our exports to the West African region by more than 40%. And again, incidentally, it is the depreciation of the Nigerian naira, that had been the major kicker for that achievement. So that was one possibility we were not thinking of, but it's there in the market. So it's now important to start driving and encouraging SMEs and other players in that segment to not only look at domestic providing for domestic productivity, but again start looking at export, because now, because of the depreciation of the naira, our products are cheaper, are more competitive in the African region. Okay. So we just need to start driving, that African focus exports, as it were.
Okay, now the U.S. has faulted the ban of, the ban on 25 import product. Now, the way you're laughing, I don't. Now, do you see us letting go of the ban, and will still keeping the ban be to our own interests, or will it be counterproductive?
I laugh because when I first read about this, I was like, what exactly is wrong with our U.S. people, because the Nigerian economy had changed in terms of paradigm, in terms of how we used to do. There was a point in time we placed a restriction on products, 43 products that time, and they were also highlighted. I'm talking about 2016. Yeah. But I know that when the Bola Tinubu administration came into office, all products, I mean all items, all products were removed from the restricted list. So when I saw the 25 items, where are they? The central, because that ban at that time was that you can bring in these products if you have the forex to bring them in. But you cannot go to the CBN to apply for foreign exchange to bring them in. So it was not as if they were even physically banned. It is just that you have foreign exchange restriction to bring them in. And by 2023, in fact, yes, by 2023, 2024, the CBN declared that no item is on the banned list. You know, so for me it would just be as if the Americans were trying to come with an excuse. You know, it was their initial excuse was that we had a higher what do you call it, a higher trade balance. We had a positive trade balance with them over time. You know, and the argument from Nigeria is this trade balance, this higher trade balance or trade surplus and balance of payments came from the oil and gas sector. And then they now reverted to the 25 items. And we said, again, my own argument is we know that publicly the CBN has said no item is on the banned list, you know, in Nigeria. So that couldn't have hold. We think it's important that the United States of America Authority become more upfront with, not with Nigerians alone, because the truth of the matter is most of us are seeing, most of the world sees the United States as an iconic leadership, a leader, sovereign leader, in trade, in economy, in trade, in democracy, you know. So when you see the American acting in a disruptive manner, that is why you see this frenzy, this excitement, this confusion across the world. And if it's across the world, Nigeria cannot be insulated. It would impact us. So the important thing for us is to have our own peculiar Nigerian agenda to getting out of this trouble.
Okay, do you see it as a way of, will I say, expressing their dominance on the world? That's
what they have done. That's you know, they have a president that has a messianic syndrome. You know, one make America great again. So it's the Messiah, it's the American Messiah to uplift America and make America as dominant as possible. You know, the old idea of equity and equality and other encouraging diversity, equity, and other forms of values are now thrown to the dogs. So it is now to show everybody in the world that America is number one.
Okay, now in 30 seconds, what strategy should businesses adopt to stay competitive in spite or despite the U.S. tariff?
Backward integration. We have everything we need in this country. You know, mineral resources, agricultural, you know, resources, and all that. Backward integration, so that we start, you know, depending less on imports. Drive exports. Divert our exports. Since U.S. does not want us, there are so many countries that still want our products. So, but the important thing is for us, again, to reduce consciously cost of production, you know, so that the Nigerian product will be competitive in the global market, as it were.
Thank you very much. That was Nii Akinshiju. He's a financial and investment analyst. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective with us.
Pleasure as always, man. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you for being part of the program. I'm Mikaria Clinton. Goodbye.